Welcome, guys, to another episode of Zebraman, also known as the People's Podcast. Today, we are joined by a recruitment specialist, Brett Duncan. Brett, welcome to podcast. Welcome to Zebraman.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, thanks for getting in touch.
Thank you so much for making time to be with us today. We are here today basically as a recruitment specialist. We thought we should bring you in to teach us a thing or two about the space of recruitment, the space of youth unemployment. I'm sure you've seen the comment from DJ Zinhle where she was nearly mad at on social media when she said that the youth are unemployable and they lack the necessary skills. I think she says that in the back burner of the latest stats in terms of youth unemployment. I think it stands at about 45%. That should be disastrous, man.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I saw her comments, that she made about the youth, and I think in many ways it might have been taken a little bit out of context. I think what she was saying was that, the youth aren't developing enough skills in order to become employable. That was my sort of understanding. So they might have been taken the wrong way to say that they aren't strong enough to be employed. I think they need to gain the skills. So I think just to say that, and I know she did apologize for it, but I do think it was taken slightly out of context, her comment. So that's just to say that about the video, yeah.
Why are we in this space where we're finding ourselves, with the youth unemployment statistics being at about 45? But that's really bad, man.
Yeah. Well, look, I think I started out in recruitment. I worked in recruitment in the UK, and then I went to Australia, and I came back to South Africa in 2009. And when I came back, if you look at just the general size of the economy, I remember Standard Bank had a graduate trainee program where they introduced graduates into the bank, and then they were deployed within the business. I think Transnet, for example, had a huge apprenticeship program going. So there were a lot of those initiatives that I think really helped unemployment. It was giving candidates coming out of institutions or candidates who get a matric avenues in order to gain skill. And I just think that has dried up a lot, and I think that has sort of reduced the options that candidates do have at the moment. And I think that's just testament to the South African economy, but also I think also the global economy hasn't exactly done very well. I think COVID has impacted the global economy, and obviously South Africa is not immune to that. So I think the economy is shrinking. I think specifically from a South African perspective, I don't know the numbers exactly, but if you looked at what the JSE was, say 10 years ago to where it is now, so I think there is an element of that. I think in terms of if you look at government versus business, has government failed the youth? Absolutely. I think you couldn't argue any other way. They sort of had the opportunity to really drive great apprenticeship programs. Transnet again is a great example. Why I think there's some crazy stat like there's only 2 apprentices currently working in Transnet. That's ludicrous. I mean, the fact that we don't have a rail network anymore. And the spin-off from all of that is not just more trucks on the road. It's actually opportunities that the youth don't have anymore. And I think the government could look at themselves at that. I would also say that corporate South Africa has also let the youth down. I think corporate South Africa had a huge opportunity to really upskill candidates within their businesses, but again, costs is a big thing. I mean, all our clients that we speak to, and not just South African, but I mean even global clients are all talking about cost. So investing in youth is an investment. It's an investment that will hopefully one day pay off, but you certainly don't see the return straight away. So when corporates are struggling financially and perhaps not seeing the returns that they'd like to see or the growth they'd like to see, and they have to keep shareholders happy, to now go and invest huge amounts of money in a big graduate program, where at the end of the program they may only be able to employ 10% of the people. They've upskilled 100%, but they've employed 10. The other 90 get into the market, which then helps competitors and helps the youth. But as a return on investment, is that really beneficial for a corporate? You have to question that. So I think, you can, I suppose it's quite easy to blame the government because they do have resources at their disposal. And I think if you look at all the state-owned enterprises that have failed, I think there's an issue there. Difficult to point a finger at corporate because at the end of the day, they're a corporate business, right? So they need to have returns and create shareholder value. So I just think, unfortunately, for the youth in South Africa, it's been a bit of a double whammy, if you want to call it that, where suddenly all those opportunities have dried up. And I think that perhaps is what's led us to a situation now where you've got this, extremely high unemployment rate. So yeah, that would be my take on it from a more sort of macro perspective. Yeah, on that.
Oh, that was good, man. I think you've looked at it really at a holistic level, including business, government, and everybody involved. I mean, let's touch on the education side of it. Are the young people getting the necessary education that would probably put them in a better space to be employed, or is the transitioning from formal education into the workspace not so working on the side of the youth? What's the problem around that space?
Look, I think very often, when you're studying and you're getting degrees, or I'm talking about more sort of BComs and degrees and that kind of thing, unless they're very specified. So unless you are a chartered accountant or you're moving into a specific field like accountancy, finance, material science, engineering, things like that, I think the transition is a lot easier because it's a lot more focused. Now, it's obviously a lot harder to get those degrees because it takes longer, and there's a financial implication to it, which is another potential downfall of the government, but it is very expensive. So a lot of the youth are restricted from getting those good qualifications, which will allow them to transition into the public sector a lot easier. So the more generic degrees, the matrics, the more generic degrees, the transition is hard because the opportunity, as I pointed out, isn't there. So unless you're very, very specific in one field, it is tough to transition into the corporate world. And it comes down to getting experience. So the chicken and egg story. How do I get experience if I don't have experience? But then what do you do? So it is a tough one, and I think the transition is difficult out of education and into the corporate world. So I think more needs to be done there for sure.
We're looking at I would say new opportunities. We're looking into technology, digital space, and all of that. Some institutions are offering free online courses. Have the youth taken advantage of that so that they are perhaps better positioned to get more opportunities job-wise?
Well, look, I mean, it goes back to your original question about, what more could be done from a government. Now, I think that we had a big opportunity to create you could call it a tech hub in South Africa, where we could really the government could have invested in the youth and actually given them opportunity to study tech-related roles, which I think would then naturally, South Africa then as a whole would become a hub for international companies to invest and bring jobs here. We haven't done that. So that then it has fallen to the private sector to offer these free courses and things like that, which unfortunately they are quite diluted in many ways, and some of them are a lot better than others. So I mean, my advice there would be, before you do take a course, make sure it's worth your while and time and effort to actually get that qualification. But look, I mean, technology, not only actual technology itself, but the technology of the world through COVID as well has pushed a lot of jobs remote, which has then led to the opportunity to work from abroad, and I think that's a good opportunity that South Africa has at the moment, because I think the ability to work in South Africa but deliver a service into the UK as a business process outsourcing or an offshoring structure, I think is a huge opportunity for South Africa. And I think what you'll see is the numbers are really increasing quite rapidly. I think it's one of the fastest growing sectors in South Africa. I think the government needs to really get behind that, and I think they need to invest in the education and training and development of the youth, and then allow the companies to utilize that skill now, which is getting a little bit more upskilled, and then they can deliver those services offshore. So that really, for me, I think South Africa as a hub for outsourcing, I think is a very good opportunity across all sectors, not only tech, but the technology certainly has brought that closer.
We are about to get to June, the Youth Month in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
The focus then turns onto the youth. I think we've already alluded to the fact that the unemployment stats is at about 45%. What advice would you give to young people to better position themselves moving forward and to be in a space where they'll get even much better opportunities?
Well, look, you often hear people say, hire for attitude and train. So I think that's key. And I mean, I suppose it might be easier said than done, but really, I think it actually comes down to attitude. South Africa is in a strong position, as I said about BPO, and I think that there is a good opportunity for us to build out a really great hub here. That just requires people that are driven, people that want to learn, people that are committed to their roles. So, like, I know it might sound a bit softer, but like it's focusing on those sort of key attributes. Just being honest, open lines of communication, things like that. So it's almost like looking at those softer skills and then getting yourself the opportunity and then really applying yourself to learn as much as you can when you're in that environment. Um, and then you'll naturally get upskilled, because a lot of the time the roles that are coming into South Africa from an offshoring perspective aren't necessarily high skill at this stage, because again we sort of lack that sort of training and development. But the roles require hardworking individuals, high responsiveness, great communication. South Africa's great timeline to offer opportunities into Europe. The US as well as sort of more sort of West as well. So we've got a good opportunity from that perspective. It just requires really committed, hungry individuals that want to learn, want to get in. So I think my advice is, when you get the opportunity, really look at those. Those skills are super important, and I think it would be to try and really highlight those and focus on those, because at the end of the day, that's what your core will be. If you're an honest, hardworking individual, people are going to give you opportunities. There's no doubt about it. And then it's just sort of focus on those, and then you'll get your training and development, and then build from there. And who knows what opportunities could come from that. Yeah.
I've had an opportunity to chat to an individual who's climbed the ladder and working in advertising. What she told me was that she couldn't even finish her degree at university, but she's worked hard to be where she is. She says what has been important for her has been to be street smart. How important is it to be street smart and to have the qualifications, but being street smart as well?
Look, I think South Africans as a whole are quite entrepreneurial. I think we have to be, um, and I think street smarts is massive. And I think it comes back to my original thing about just highlighting and focusing on those softer skills: commitment, responsiveness, honesty, good communication. That is sort of street smarts as well, because it's that's what you're born with. And if you have that, so yes, I agree 100%. I think street smart is key. Yeah, look at other ways of promoting yourself. However that may be. You might not have any experience, but you really good communicator. You're a positive individual. You're highly committed. How's there a way that you can try and demonstrate that to a future employer? Talking to you on this podcast, you're demonstrating, you're putting the best foot forward. You're being innovative. You're opening up, forms of communication and that kind of thing. That's a demonstration that, you are street smart and you are looking to, to try and get ahead. So I think street smart is massively important. And I think, it's just working on that is quite important as well. And you can learn that stuff. I think that actually is important as well. As you can focus on it and learn how to get better.
What are other opportunities that you think they might be coming in the horizon, or opportunities that the youth might not have sort of focused on, might not been aware of in the job market that you might have come across?
Look, again, we have got an offshoring business in South Africa, and we work with a number of UK clients as well as Australian clients, and that sector I think is growing, and I think we've got a big opportunity there. I think the government does see it, so the government are putting in some really good initiatives to try and promote that. I think, as I alluded to earlier, the economy is shrinking, but if we can introduce really nice opportunity for foreign companies to really build businesses here and invest in South Africa, I think that's a great opportunity. So, and again, those roles are not high tech yet, but I think if we're smart enough as a whole, and the government sees it, we can become quite tech savvy, which I think will drive the salaries up, drive the investment up. So I think we will get there, but for now, it's really just about how you can get into a business that is going to be working with a client that wants to grow, a client that wants to invest in individuals, and taking that opportunity. So I think more and more of those outsourcing, offshoring opportunities will start coming into the youth, and I think that they will be able to capitalize on that. Yeah, I think that's where I would see perhaps the biggest potential. Yeah.
Brett, thank you so much, man, for the opportunity for us to be able to talk on these important issues.
Yeah.
Because they're not only about the youth. I think it also goes into the entire nation. But I think our focus now